The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond. The Defense, Part 1. My name is Steve Van Eiderstein, and welcome to The Narrowing Path, Walking the Spiritual Walk. I'm really excited to get into doing this next section of this book, The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond. It is the final section that he has given us, and it's really a great accumulation of a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Obviously, what this part is about is really defending, as the title would indicate, defending the right for love to be justified as the most important thing, the sunum bonum, as it said, right? So I also want to apologize, by the way. I meant to do this first off. Apologize for the late post. I was out on a little bit of some personal time, vacation, and I'm glad to be back. But anyone that was wondering why it was late, that is why. But I'm excited to get into this today. So let's recap a little bit about what we did. The first one was called The Contrast, where Henry Drummond, this whole book is based upon 1 Corinthians 13 from the Bible, Paul's first letter to the Corinthians, talking about a lot of conduct and a lot of principle-based discussion. And in the first part, he contrasts love versus faith versus hope, and makes the case that love should be the primary, or love is the greatest thing in the world and most important thing in the world. Then it's the analysis, and we gave some thought to what the qualities of a loving person were, how we should conduct ourselves in all ways. And that was obviously, again, continued on in Paul's letter to the Corinthians, chapter 13. And now we are at the defense. And there's a lot of stuff in here. I really love it. Just because it shows so how we don't change. Human beings are of the same condition as they were when Paul was writing that letter. And that just blows my mind and makes me laugh all at the same time. But gives me a little hope that, hey, we can still do better, So let's go ahead and we'll dig right into this. And we're going to do the full reading. So this is a little bit longer than the readings we have been doing with like the virtues and things like that, just because this last chapter, we'll probably break it up into 4 or 5 different episodes just because there's so much content in it. So, but they are a little bit longer reading. So here we go. This is the defense in Henry Drummond's book, The Greatest Thing in the World. Now, lastly, I have a word or two to say about Paul's reason for singling out love as the supreme possession. Love defended or justified. It is a very remarkable reason. In a single word, it is this: it lasts. It is a thing that is going to last. Love never faileth. Then Paul begins again one of his marvelous lists of the great things of the day and exposes them. He runs over the things that men thought were going to last, the things that men accounted great, and he shows that they are all fleeting and transitory. He says, love never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. It was the mother's ambition for a boy in those days that he should become a prophet. For hundreds of years, God had never spoken by means of any prophet, and the prophet was greater than the king. Men waited for a prophet to appear and hung upon his lips when he did. Paul says, whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. This book is full of prophecies, one by one. They have failed us. That is, having been fulfilled, their work is finished. Except as evidences, as matters of interest, their work has failed. Whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. They have nothing more to do in the world except to feed a devout man's faith. Then Paul talks about tongues. That was another thing that was greatly coveted. Whether there be tongues, they shall cease. As we all know, many, many centuries have passed since tongues have been known in this world. They have ceased. Take it in any sense you like. Take it in its narrowest sense, which probably was not in Paul's mind at all. Languages in general. And take the words in which these chapters were written. Greek, ancient Greek. It has gone. Take the Latin, the other tongue of those days. It ceased long ago. Look at the Indian language. It is ceasing. The language of my own Scottish Highlands is ceasing. The most popular book in English, in the English tongue, at the present time, except the Bible, is one of Dickens' works, his Pickwick Papers. It is written in the language of London street life, and experts assure us that in 50 years it will be unintelligible to the average English reader. Its language is ceasing. Then Paul goes further, and with even greater boldness he says, whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. And the wisdom of the ancients, where is it? It is already gone. A schoolboy today knows more than Sir Isaac Newton knew. His knowledge has vanished away. You put yesterday's newspaper in the fire. Its knowledge has vanished away. You buy old editions of great encyclopedias for a few cents. Their knowledge has vanished away. Look at how the coach has been superseded by the steam engine. Look how look how the telephone has come in and put 100 inventions aside. And they will have their day and then vanish away. The greatest living authority on electricity and on physics, Sir William Thomson, said in Scotland, at a meeting at which I was present, the steam engine is passing away. Whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish away. At every workshop in America, you will see out in the backyard a heap of old iron, a few wheels, and a few levers. All rusty. 20 years ago, that was the pride of the city. Men flocked in from the country to see the great innovation, and now it has been superseded and has vanished away. And all the boasted science and philosophy of this day will soon be old. It is not going to last. Let us pursue it, but let us not make it the chief thing. Let us be humble with it when we get it, because it is temporary. In my time in the University of Edinburgh, the greatest figure in the faculty was Sir James Simpson, the discoverer of chloroform. Just before I left Scotland, his successor and nephew, Professor Simpson, was asked by the librarian of the university to go to the library and pick out the books on his subject, midwifery, that were no longer needed. And his reply to the librarian was this: take every book that is more than 10 years old and put it down into the cellar. Knowledge has vanished away. Sir James Simpson was a great authority 12 years ago. Men came from all parts of the earth to consult him, and the whole knowledge of that day, within this short period, is now consigned to the science of today. It is now consigned by the science of today to the cellar. How true are the words of Paul. We know in part, and we prophesy in part. We see through a glass darkly. Can you see anything that is going to last? There we go. Heck of a reading, isn't it? That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Going through this with y'all on this podcast has really opened my eyes to just how deep and how really aware Henry Drummond was. And I mean, for Henry Drummond's awareness, there had to be some awareness on Paul's side, obviously, right? So this is just transcended through the centuries. But it's just amazing to me to read this and go, wow, yep, well, he was more right than he even knew then, And it's just such a great start to this section, the defense of love. And again, just a reminder, I'm reading from a 1891 copy, which might be a little different from any new copies you might have. So if some of the language is different, if there's more information or things are changed, please forgive me. But I just like to go back to the original as close as I possibly can. So this is an 1891 version. But the case he makes for the defense of love, right, starting it out, is just such a beautiful, beautiful thing to do. And this verse section that we read is such a perspective shifting section. Like, it altered going through and getting ready to do this podcast. It shifted my perspective even more of just how small I am in this timeline of the world. A lot of us like to overinflate our importance or our significance or the impact that we make. Some people like to just throw up their hands at that and say, well, I'm not going to do anything anyway. Who am I? But which I don't think is right either. But having a correct perspective on how we actually affect and impact people is quite incredible, actually. And this really does it. This and the way Drummond spoke about this, he's our reality has manifested exactly as he predicted it would, exactly as they predicted it would back then. I love that predictability is almost there, even though that can be terrifying at times, right? Because we look back and we say, this is what's happened. This is what we assume will happen. By all good attempts and accounts, this is where we're going to end up. And he nailed it in this. The last section of that reading with the knowledge portion, we'll dig into it a little bit more, but that's such an important thing to actually remember. That is such an important thing to remember. It helps keep ourselves in line. And to remember, everybody in their age thought they had seen the most advanced human technology could ever be. Just like we are now. We think we're at the pinnacle. And we're as high as we've ever gotten. Technologically so, and medical-wise maybe. But we need to remember the days of our past have always been overshadowed with the achievements of the future. And we need to keep that in mind, that it is not our ability to conquer everything. It's our ability to lay even more solid foundations and build upon the previous foundations that have been handed to us to continue the growth. And correct understanding of our responsibility is quite important. So let's dig into this. I'm just going to read back the full opening of this. He says, now lastly, I have a word or two to say about Paul's reason for singling out love as a supreme possession. Love defended or justified, whichever you'd like to categorize it. That's where obviously the title comes from. It is a very remarkable reason. It is a single word, or in a single word, it is this: it lasts. It is a thing that is going to last. Love never faileth. So the introduction sets this whole thing up beautifully, right? And remember, this is only the first section of this section called the defense. And he's saying it's simply just that love will always be here. Love will always be around. It will always exist. It will always be that thing, right? And everything else is failable. Love never faileth. I love that. So, regardless of the time period, regardless of the circumstance, regardless of the social classes, regardless of the world order, the organization's country, political map, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Love will always be there. Love will exist. Love will be transcendent throughout time. And it's just such a simple way to say it. And it just resonates so deeply for many. It resonated deeply for me. It's just love lasts. That's the name of this episode, is Love Lasts. Regardless of what that love looks like, regardless of how it's interpreted, regardless of everything else going on, love will last. And he quotes it. He quotes the love never faileth, right? So that's where he's summarizing it from, is that line. And, even those are some powerful words. Love never faileth. And sometimes you hear something like so-and-so never does something, and they mean it like, yeah, they never do it, which really means they do it not that often, right? If something happens, if it does occur, it's rare. This really means love never faileth. Love will never disappear. Love will never not show up where it's invited in. Love will always persist. Love has always persisted. It has been here before we got here. It'll be here after we leave. Whether I'm talking as a race, as a country, as a individual, we're just going along for the ride. But so that's where this love lasts originates from. Love never faileth. And Drummond then expands upon the things that Paul wrote on. He wrote on a couple of very specific examples that were appropriate to that time, which isn't going to be important to actually consider, because I think they still impact our day-to-day lives today, right? So we're going to talk about a couple of things that were listed and why they will fail when love will not. So first thing he talked about was prophets and prophecy. Love never faileth, but whether there be prophecies, they shall fail. Now, Drummond expands upon this, and it's really important to actually understand contextually what's going on here. When Paul was writing this letter, the words of a prophet were more highly regarded than a king. I mean, if you know the story of Samuel and all this other stuff from the Bible, you'll understand the words of prophecy, and a person being a prophet was almost sought after. I can only imagine how many false prophets there were just to be gratifying for their own egos. And people sought after prophets as well. People that claimed to be a prophet, or people that attributed the prophet title to others, right? Because somebody might not claim to be a prophet, but others might say that they were at the time, but they were very highly regarded. They were like the top of the food chain, so to say. Parents, he said, mothers' greatest desires were have their children be prophets, because they knew how important that of a person that was. So this idea of a prophet and prophesying was extremely, extremely important, and extremely highly regarded, and a lot of things going on. So, to say here that whether there be prophecies, they will fail, it's a pretty big statement. Because at the time, that's the most important thing a person could be. And if they were a prophet and they were prophesying, and that love is more important than the prophecies, that's saying something. That's saying quite a bit, actually. And Drummond also quantifies or qualifies this by saying it's not that the prophecy failed. Prophecies can be fulfilled. Prophecies have been fulfilled. But the reality is they have failed to outlive love. They have failed to exist longer than love has. And they will always lose to love. They will fail to conquer love, to fail to be more important than love. And it can't even compete, actually. So they were important still, but just in the context that we're talking about, they're not what is most important. They're not what is going to exist forever, right? And this, when a prophecy is fulfilled, it's done. It's over, right? The most impact it makes is in the moment when it occurs, and then after that, he says, how did he phrase it? The world, except after the prophecy is fulfilled, they only exist to feed a devout man's faith. Meaning, hey, this happened. Take faith because this has happened before that something again might, or that could, or God could be this way, or this, trying to derive hope from it. And but most of the time, fulfilled prophecies, given enough distance and time, will be looked on as with skepticism and disbelief. And that's a good story, people will say, right? So the impact of a prophecy, even a prophecy being fulfilled, dissipates. It fades. It doesn't resonate with people. But love will always resonate, regardless of time and regardless of prophecy. Now, the next thing they talked about was tongues. And this is kind of a weird one to talk about, actually. It says, whether there be tongues, they will cease. And it's just an interesting spot in this reading, really. I just, because I don't know, I had to go look up some stuff and Google some things and look at some verses and in the Bible, because I've known about speaking in tongues. It's been something talked about before, or I've heard people talk about it before, maybe is a better way to say it. And the information in this section is really, really fantastic, actually. And it's a really humbling thing and keeps this perspective that we need. And Drummond is talking about this old idea. He gives us two different interpretations of what could have been meant by tongues, and both of them I think are very relevant. So the original biblical interpretation is that when someone spoke in tongues, they would either speak in languages they did not know, and they attributed that to a spiritual gift from God, or they would speak in such a way that everybody, regardless of their the language they spoke, could understand what someone was saying. And Drummond went on to say that this is something that has not existed in a very long time, right? No one has claimed this in a very long time. Now, I do want to say, in more recent years, I don't have a hard date on when this started happening. There are denominations of Christianity that do claim to speak in tongues. It is very controversial. It's something that provides disbelief for many, and it's something that a lot of people are curious about. Now, I know that I've just disclosed all I know about it. I just know that it happens. I know that it is claimed. But in the context of this book, Drummond was talking about how it hasn't occurred in a very long time, and there's no instances of people being able to speak in tongues and it being attributed to a spiritual gift. Not that there was other people that spoke in tongues and just wasn't attributed to a Christian God. It just didn't happen. It was not something that actually occurred. So, whether there be tongues, and this was something that was commonly practiced or understood that would occur back then. But he says that they will cease. Love will outlast the tongues. But I really enjoy the next application of this that he gave. He said, this even matters for our daily speaking. This even is true for the language we use today. And he gave some justification for that, because the book or the languages that the original writings of the Bible were written in are now dead languages, which I think is an absolutely incredible take on this. I wouldn't have taken it this way. But like ancient Greek, there's still Greek being spoken today, but they don't speak ancient Greek. They don't have the same interpretation. It's almost a completely different language. It's extremely difficult for someone to be able to read and interpret. This has to be taught, right? Or Latin as well. That's something that has disappeared. So these are languages that are gone. He even references his own Scottish, the dialect of Scotland in the Highlands, which I believe is Gaelic. That also was dying away, right? So actual languages are going. Different tongues of speech, different dialects are disappearing, right? And think about this today, right? This happens today, right? The literature that's being produced today looks nothing like it did 50 years ago, let alone 50 years before that, let alone when 130 years ago, when Drummond was alive and looking and writing things and giving this information in lectures, right? The slang of today will be forgotten in 20 years. Think about how people used to speak in the 90s, if you're that old, or in the 2000s, or even in the 2010s. The language then is completely different. If you watch movies from that time period, or you read books from that time period, it's obvious that things are much different now, right? Time changes language, and language changes over time. So we start to lose ourselves along the way, or we start to lose these dialects along the way. And he's given this example to say, even these tongues will cease, but love will persist. Love will still be here. Love will be continuous, even past the death of English, at least English as we know it. When you think about it, how many people can read Old English, right? The King James version of the Bible, people find very difficult to read now because English language has changed. And this isn't even really Old English, from my understanding. There's dialects of English that I couldn't even comprehend. They spelled letters, or they displayed letters differently. They joined sounds differently. Like it's a whole different dialect of English that's occurred. And so to say that love will persist despite the languages spoken about it, that's huge. That to know that today, that the love we have today is the same love that was here 10 years ago, 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, it's still that same love available to everybody. It's absolutely beautiful, beautiful thing. And I love that we're given both of those interpretations. And now the last thing that was referenced here is knowledge. And the way our culture has developed exemplifies the point that he was trying to make here, to be completely honest with you. The way we have, where we are with technology today proves this point. So what he wrote here was that Paul goes further and with even greater boldness says, whether there be knowledge, it shall vanish. Well, we live in a technology age, knowledge age, right? And to think that it will vanish seems like an odd thing, because everything's kept online, right? Every single one of my podcasts will be around probably forever on YouTube servers and Spotify servers and everything else, right? So what does this mean? Well, what he's saying is the new technology of today, the cutting edge advancement, the being on the being at the pinnacle of the height of everything that we have going on, and the speed that of change and AI and all of these things, right, that are going on. Tomorrow it will all be old news. Every achievement and accomplishment in this space, in the technology and knowledge and understanding and philosophy and science and all of this stuff, that will be old news. That will all change. It will grow. It will be absorbed. It will be redefined. He talked about Isaac Newton, how everything Isaac Newton knew when he was around and practicing what he was practicing, and the physics that he gave us and everything else, right? All of that has been expounded upon, absorbed, and changed. People still know who he is, of course, but the wisdom that he carried and the knowledge that he carried is gone. It's been taken, it's been changed, it's been modified, it's been refined into a thing that is no longer his. Right? And he talked about the steam engines. I love that he brought that up, because the steam engines at the time were monumental in development and technology. And then suddenly they were gone as quick as they showed up, because newer technology showed up. Newer inventions arose, right? The horse and carriage is what he was talking about, was replaced by steam, then electricity, then telephones, right? And I love that he said we can buy old encyclopedias that are outdated knowledge. Right? All knowledge someday will be old news, and it will cease to be relevant. He gave the example that about the librarian who asked the new professor, "Hey, what should we take out of the library?" And he's like, "Anything over 10 years old, get rid of it, because it's not relevant anymore." Because that was the rate of change that they had back then. Today, you might say, "Hey, anything over 2 years old, get rid of it, because it's not relevant anymore," because we're growing at such an exponential rate, and we're having such explosive discoveries and advancement. But the same thing is true, right? The tech icons of today will be just a casual mention tomorrow. And the day after that, they won't even be recognized. It's so humbling to remember that. And that from that humility comes correct pursuit. You know, from that humility and from that correct perspective comes the correct motivation of pursuit when we go through this thing. Because if we're going for glory, you'll lose. If you're going for validation and money and fame, you will not achieve it. It will be unfulfilling. But if you go to do advance, if you pursue technology and you pursue philosophy and you pursue all of these things to help build a better world for the next generations to stand upon, you will find that fulfillment. But you have to maintain your correct perspective, because we're all just this passing moment. We are all here together right now, and then everyone later will be here together without us. Just recognizing and understanding that, and knowing that that's how this is supposed to go, but also knowing that love will persist despite that. It's a powerful thing. Extremely powerful thing. It's a humbling thing. And it really helps us orient ourselves to the world correctly and properly. At least it helps me, I'll say. And I really like how he ended this, and with the last, with these two parts of the Bible chapter. It said, "We know in part and we prophesy in part. We see through a glass darkly. Can you tell me anything that is going to last?" What he's saying there is we do the best we can with where we're at, but all of it will probably be passing. We see through a glass darkly. It's clouded, it's foggy, it's unclear, it's translucent, right? So we can kind of see, but we can't kind of see. So we make our best guesses. We do what we can, but at the end of the day, love will be the only thing that lasts. Everything else will just be good attempts at discovering how love runs through everything. That's a wild thought. Everything we do is to discover what's already been here. And what's always been here is love. And it will always be here. So, but that brings us to the end of the podcast today. Thank you guys so much for your patience and your understanding. And thank you guys for joining me for this whole thing. Please go ahead, like, follow, subscribe, share, or do all that fun stuff. I really appreciate all the feedback that I get from you guys that watch this stuff. And I appreciate the continued growth. And I look forward to the next iterations as we finish up this book, The Greatest Thing in the World by Henry Drummond, and just seeing where he takes us. So thank you all so much. Until next time, thanks.